5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
MKNA TV Broadcasting Network. Be the one to know it all. In partners with RSK 61.19, serving the nation for more than 100 years. World Today. And now, live in Washington, World Today with your hosts, Kathleen Gadula and Avira Abbas.
Good evening, America. Today is December 13, 1949. Welcome to our program. Join us in a 30-minute program as we recall the events, people, and intrigues that happened on this decade. Here in our special program, looking back at the 1940s. On the first half, we would recall the things that happened before and during World War II, and we will get an opinion from a specialist about the effects of the Pearl Harbor attack and the atomic bomb. Then on our second half, we'll recall the things that happened after the World War II and an opinion from a specialist about the starting of the Cold War. Then try to guess the answer to our timeline question. By the end of 1941, specifically on December 8 and December 11, President Roosevelt had entered the United States into World War II against the Axis powers. Many American men, from fathers to sons, quickly signed up, if not forced to join the U.S. Army. During the World War II, white men were scarce in America, and this gave opportunities for women and minority groups in the country to show their worth. Now, let's hear the whole story from Melanie Nicholas.
In these times, the country needed workers for different industries to make weapons and munitions that would help the country's effort in World War II. Without hesitations,
American women put their aprons on and makeup and went out to the streets to do men's work.
For many women, war was about gaining strength and mobility.
Rosie Riveter became a powerful figure for the American women. She symbolized the strength of women. Most of her pictures were about skilled women working for their country.
This had caused for many American women to help in war efforts.
World War II became a symbol of freedom for a lot of women, because women were no longer put in roles that society had created for them. With freedom, there also came equality for the women. As many more men left for war, there were many new jobs. So the women filled the new jobs. The women worked in business offices and factories. Women often face discrimination and less pay. About 300,000 women worked in the armed forces. The women even joined the army by working in organizations called Women's Auxiliary Army Corps and Women Air Force Service Pilots. Their jobs were helping run military communication systems to flying planes from factories to military units. Army and Navy nurses served in combat areas. The efforts of female workers were vital to America's wartime industries. World War II gave women the chance to prove they are just as capable as men. As Brian Metzger said, it's too bad it took war to make everyone see it. During this time, minority groups such as the African Americans and Mexicans took this as an advantage for better jobs and good life after the Great Depression. Mexican workers, called braceros, were allowed to work in the U.S. They went to Midwest and West Coast to take jobs during the war. In here, 200,000 braceros helped an agricultural economy of the West and Southwest of the country.
Even though most minority groups were given jobs, discrimination still couldn't be stopped. Minority groups were given lesser pays than white workers with the same job. This continued until the late President Roosevelt created the Fair Employment Practices to prevent big rallies from African Americans. This stopped the discrimination among war and government's industries workers. After the attack of the Japanese to Pearl Harbor, many
Japanese Americans were sent to internment camps and faced discrimination. Many were also questioned by the police and were suspected as Japanese spies. Even if this was happening, many Japanese Americans still proved their loyalty to the U.S. and helped in the war efforts. some Japanese helped in the war by being spies, interpreters, and translators for the Americans.
Their efforts in World War II had just started a new era, in which there is lesser discrimination among women and minority groups in doing jobs that white American men ordinarily do. Their rights had also increased and became almost equal to the white American men during the World War. Their unending efforts during World War II, even from all those discrimination, proved their loyalty and love for America. They didn't just help in winning World War II, they also helped in fighting the war against racism. So for all those women and minority groups, we salute you. You are our heroes.
Thanks, Melanie, for the report. And now, let's watch an interview that our correspondent Mohammed Kazi made before the death of the U.S. late President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Mohammed?
Now here at the grave of the man who led us to recovery from the Great Depression and into the World War II. He lived from 1882 to 1945. He was the first president to win 4 consecutive terms. He was the 32nd president and also was the man of the century. Yes, your guess is right. This is the grave of the late U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt Delano. Today we are going to go back in time and watch the interview of him by me. It was done some months before his death. And here it is. Today in our studio we have an exclusive guest. He is the 32nd president and the first president to win 4 consecutive terms. Yes, he is none other than Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Mohammed. Okay, Mr. President. Ever since you won the 1932 elections, the whole America had incredibly recovered from the Great Depression. This is a very difficult task, which many other presidents before you had failed, and your effort and success in solving this problem. So many people are wondering now, how do you solve this problem?
Well, Mohammed, as you can see from the starting of my term, I had produced the New Deal, which has 3 goals to solve: unemployment, poverty relief, economic recovery, and economic and social reform. Accompanied with this, I had established some programs like the Economy Act and National Recovery Administration that helped in the economic, business, and labor recovery. Civil work administration that provided jobs to many Americans while repairing and rebuilding the country at the same time. This program, as you can see, lasted for 5 years, from 1933 to 1938. Then after this period, we had entered ourselves to the World War II.
So, Mr. President, what exactly happened after the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Where are you? Well, before the attack, I was concentrating on the foreign affairs. But after the attack on our naval base on Pearl Harbor, I officially became the wartime president. The attack was a huge loss because a large number of ships sank in the garrison, but the Japanese carrier-based planes couldn't do much damage to our aircraft carriers. After this, we declared war on Japan. Then Italy and Germany came to assist Japan, declaring war on the U.S.
When the U.S. had entered the World War II by the end of the year 1941, did you first think that the country you just recovered from being apart again?
On the contrary, we just had entered the war by the end of 1941. After the horrific attack of Pearl Harbor, I immediately knew that this would be again a start for our country to work together, boy or girl, white or black, and bring our country back to progressing. I also called right away for all ammunition and other wartime products that would help our country efforts in the war. Before I knew it, I have established a war production board that led all industries in making wartime products. This had not only helped our efforts in the war, but also helped to fight for our struggles and unemployment. And in fact, during this time, all Americans have been employed, including the women and other minority groups.
What can you say about America's effort in World War II?
The success of our country are dedicated to all the Americans who took part in helping our nation during the war. I especially thank all the women in the minority group who incredibly helped in rising the economy and increasing the war effort by making weapons. For the military effort, I also dedicate this to all the Americans who signed in the white or colored men and women, especially in the WAAC and the WASPS, who courageously fought side by side with men in the battles. Unexpectedly, the American celebrities and athletes had also joined in the army and helped in increasing the war effort of the country. With this, they proved that they are truly Americans and deserve to be idolized. Hello? Yes. Okay, I'll be right there. Oh, Mohammed, I'm so sorry. I have to go to my meeting.
Okay, thank you for spending your precious time with us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Well, that's all from me, folks. See you next time in the same channel, same time. Till then, goodbye and good night. Interview of Roosevelt. Please get. Hope you enjoyed it.